Well, we're so fortunate to have with us today Robert Bagheri. He is the CEO and founder of Sakuu, which is that battery company that you and I have been talking about. Do you remember the one where Sandy shot it with a gun?
And it didn't explode.
Yeah. So let's get into this with Robert and see why it didn't explode. Hey, Robert, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure meeting you both.
So, yeah, how do you have a battery that, I mean, we all know that when you do something bad to a lithium battery, you get smoke, you get fire. So how are you able to solve that problem?
Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it, but just suffice it to say that we have solved the technical challenges of, dendrite growth, shorting the battery as it, heats up and things like that. So we've done a lot of work to get around that issue. And we did it actually with one of the battery chemistries, lithium metal anode, that is notorious for safety issue. What you've seen is the type of the technology that we've been able to produce and deliver it in a very, very safe manner. So obviously a lot of what we've done is trade secrets. So we won't tell everybody how we did it, but suffice it to say that it's going to produce enough cycles. It's going to help double the range of your car driving. So one of the key takeaway from it, it's going to get rid of the range anxiety when people start to adopting it.
Well, this sounds too good to be true.
Yeah. So, I mean, you don't have to share all your trade secrets, but give us just kind of an overview on how you're able to accomplish this.
Well, it really comes from how we manufacture it. This is a big contributing factor is the way we do it. If you look at everybody in the battery world, battery manufacturing, everybody's been doing the same thing for the last 30, 40 years. I know you said a battery company. Well, we do have battery technology and expertise, electrochemistry, advanced material science, all of that goes into making a battery. But we are first and foremost a battery equipment manufacturing company. We are an equipment play. Indeed, when we talked to some of our people, the investors that got excited about us, because we came into addressing the fundamental challenges of battery through the equipment, the manufacturing equipment. That's where we're different than just about everybody out there. So when we later maybe talk about our business model, we're not going to mass produce the batteries ourselves, but we're going to enable everyone to make better batteries. And by the way, do them here at home. Or decentralize it, if you will, from the one location everything comes from right now.
So what's the difference in your manufacturing equipment than, kind of the standard way of making lithium-ion batteries?
Right. Well, at the very high level, you've heard about the roll-to-roll wet process. We're doing everything dry. So when we started the company, by the way, about 8.5, 9 years ago, that was my sort of the eighth startup, if you will, after our last successful exit. Our vision from day one was to come up with a battery manufacturing platform, utilizing our additive manufacturing 3D printing know-how from our prior lives. And so that has a lot of advantages. One, as I said, you do everything in dry, powder, right? You don't turn the powder into slurry and then try to dry it, right? So we don't do any of that. We are also more efficient in the use of the material. Also, there's efficiency just getting rid of the toxicity altogether. And of course, the root of all evil in battery manufacturing is the liquid in there. We, in the non-fully solid state, we have managed to make it non-flammable. And then with our 3D printing, which is really what's needed for the world to scale the next generation of the battery, whether it's solid state, it's LFP, NMC, any type of chemistry, they need our technology because we can print those layers very, very thin. We can handle them like you can't today with today's manufacturing equipment. People are trying to do the next generation battery with the 40-year-old equipment. It's just not going to work. Yes, they've optimized it quite a bit, especially China has really done a lot of investment optimizing it, getting the cost down, but the innovation, the technology hasn't changed. So our way of putting the layers together, right, allows us to make it safer, right? Like I said, because we get rid of the flammability, right? And the toxicity and everything else that goes around it that makes it so much safer. And you saw that from the video that Sandy went around.
Yeah. I mean, so basically he was able to poke a hole through it or shoot a gun through it and it would not light on fire. So Robert, I saw that Sandy was demonstrating that you have some kind of special layer that most batteries don't have, or maybe any battery has. How is it that yours can have a hole poked through it without it catching on fire?
Well, again, it has to do with the structure of the battery. First of all, the video you saw, it's metal-free battery. It will not generate as much heat, but also the way the layers are structured, it creates such a huge resistivity there. So that for current, when you poke a hole, it's going to take forever for the current to discharge. And you know that the heat that gets generated is a rapid generation and the conduction of that current causes so much heat. In our case, the way we've structured the structure that we built here, it just allows us the battery to take a long time to discharge, and not while still operating, by the way, right? So it will never generate enough heat to catch fire.
I see.
That's just the physics of it is not going to allow it to happen.
So in a normal lithium-ion battery, you poke a hole through it, and you've essentially created this really great path for electricity to go through. That generates a lot of heat, and then that heat is what eventually catches something in the battery on fire.
Yes.
So with your battery,
causes thermal runaway is what we talked about.
So in your battery, you have more resistance, and so that's going to limit the amount of current?
So the way the layers are put together, right? You got to create this massive area where the current needs to distribute and dissipate through. So it's a much, much bigger area, right? So that results in much, much higher resistance. So the current will going to be dissipating much, much slower rate than say typical lithium-ion battery.
But don't you have to give up some kind of performance for that?
No. So we have absolutely what we've done, part of the technology that we've developed. There are some trade secrets in it, how we, doing that, but we're not in any way compromising performance to get there.
So how do you make this battery have enough resistance to when you poke a hole through it with a nail, it doesn't heat up to the point where it's going to catch on fire, and yet not have so much internal resistance as a battery cell that if you put it in, say, an electric vehicle, and I were to stomp on the accelerator of my electric vehicle, and it's going to draw just tons and tons of wattage to, accelerate my vehicle. How is it able to do both? How does it not basically blow itself up if I stab it? And can it deliver all the current that I need?
Right. So when in a typical battery, that level of current you generate by pressing the gas, let's say, the power here, in a normal battery structure, the current is going vertical, right? And it's a much, much shorter path, first of all. And it's very, very low resistance. We designed it on purpose, right? Now, in our case, the current is going to go horizontal. Short. When you're shorting it, the current is going to go this way and not this way.
Okay.
So it's going to have much more area to dissipate, much longer time to dissipate, therefore not generating the kind of heat that go in the vertical way creates.
So it sounds like your form factor has a lot to do with it, because I was wondering, everyone's kind of used to the jelly roll. You guys are doing a pouch. For the longest time, it seemed like pouch was like, oh, that's so passe, but it sounds like that is actually working to your advantage.
Yeah, form factor is correct. You're correct there, but it's in a different way. Actually, we're agnostic. It doesn't matter if it's cylindrical, it's pouch, or it's prismatic, but it's how those layers are put on top of each other.
Gotcha.
So the way we construct this, right? Again, it allows that it's designed to have the current, dissipated and distributed in a completely different way than the normal battery is today.
Let's get into some stats, because I know a lot of our viewers are battery wonks and they know this stuff. So things like energy density, things like C, how does your battery stack up in terms of some of the latest, greatest batteries like the 4680?
So here's the great thing that we've done, right? First of all, when we started the company, we actually created a pilot line that built battery the old way, what we call the wet or roll-to-roll way. And then we took that, we said, all right, we want to have something to compare with. So we built our lithium metal anode cell that way first. Then we went and make it printable, right? And make it dry. By the way, there is no one we compare ourselves to on that lithium metal battery but ourselves, because we have the highest performing lithium metal anode cell that has gone over 2,000 cycles.
Wow.
That's unheard of in the lithium metal anode world. I know you can look it up. There's at best that at least we've seen published maybe 700-800 cycles. And in terms of volumetric energy density, we also are north of 800 watt hour per liter.
Wow.
Again, there's a trade-off in a battery performance. You take higher cycle life, maybe lower volumetric energy density, and in terms of C rate, for example, we've been able to actually produce the best charge and discharge rate as well. So again, the future batteries built with our technology could get down to 10 minutes charge. Again, we're agnostic that some of the performance parameters are also dependent on the material you're using, the type of chemistry you're going to use, and then how you construct those layers is where we come in. with our battery manufacturing equipment that allows us to make things much more efficient, to get high performance, out of a battery, you got to make those layers very, very thin. And you can't, especially with the next generation battery technology, you can't do it with today's roll-to-roll. That's why basically it plateaus to how far they can go. Well, in our case, we come from semiconductor. Many of us have spent 30 years in semiconductor industry before I got into this, where we are employing some of those techniques that we used to use there here. Now, for example, you get a bit performance out of battery, you got to get the layer down to like 5 micron. That's a very, very thin layer, and that gives you a much better performance. So it's a number of factors that go into it. But in terms of what you said there, the C rates are equal or better. And again, whatever chemistry, that's again, the beauty of it is we don't care what chemistry it is. So if you can make it as good as you can make it, we can make it also equal or better. And usually it's better because one of the major elements is cost. We know that EV cars are still quite expensive for many people. It's not yet mainstream, although it's getting there. Thanks to Tesla and others. They're trying to get the cost down. Our technology helps get the cost down even more.
Well, let's talk about the printer, because when I first heard 3D printing, I was thinking of a traditional 3D printer with the head moving around in 3D space. And then Jesse was like, no, it sounds more like a Xerox machine where it's kind of like laser printing. Can you, from a high level...
It's a good way to put it. It's laser, but not printing paper, right? Printing. So it is, you're right. It's not a nozzle, like kind of extrusion type method. That's very slow. Imagine this, like that. This thing is going very fast, putting down material at a very, very high rate. And so, yes, the core of the technology, if you will, is power bed binder jetting, which was invented like 40 years ago at MIT, but we have reinvented it. We had made it better. And we also have made it multi-material, multi-process capable, because it's not just powder bed. We can do inkjet, we can do material jet, we can do laser jet. All of those different, depositioning technique are available to our platform. Depends on what we're making. We could then employ different types of deposition technique. But the core right now is what's called the powder bed binder jetting, which is very, very fast. Desktop Metal can tell you that it's quite fast because of the powder bed. And it's similar to that, for example.
Interesting. So you guys have, I think I saw on your website, about 99 patents. So this is a heavily patented technology. And I remember when Elon and Tesla bought a company like Highbar and they bought Maxwell because they wanted to get this kind of manufacturing into their factories. Is this something you imagine in the future you might sell to a bigger company like Tesla, or you think they'll license your technology or buy your machines to put into their factories?
It could be any one of those combinations, right? We're keeping an open mind about it. But talk about the patents. We now have over 110 patents, but also over 140 trade secrets. So the beauty of our sort of a patent strategy was that we would only patent things that could be reverse engineered. So that's why it's only about 110. I say only, because we could have a lot more. And then we're keeping a lot of it in trade secrets, right? So that's on the patent side of it. And so the trade secrets have to do with process, ingredients, and it's not easy to do what we're doing. That's why no one has done it yet. Although we're starting to see some people are trying to copy us, which we're delighted actually that if they do it, competition is validation, right? Or someone is trying to do what you're doing is validation. Just like what Elon Musk did, right? He went out there, put out his IP, let everybody use it, right? That's kind of where we're going in terms of business model. To your question, we have a licensing model as part of our business model, but we want to sell the equipment. The business model, sell the equipment. Each machine, by the way, is about $5 million a piece. And each machine can produce enough battery for 5,000 electric cars per year, each machine. So it's about 500 megawatt per machine. It's its output. So it's quite competitive in terms of its throughput and cost. But yes, if there's somebody comes along that wants to license part of what we have, we're open to that. The other thing is if somebody says we want to buy you, obviously that's a different conversation. We are going to be servicing the world when it comes to battery today. The next vertical, by the way, is outside of battery. It could be anything else. We can manufacture anything.
Now, I know in 2021, you got your first big round funding for $40 or $50 million. Then you were going to SPAC, but I think the timing just wasn't quite right. What are your plans going forward? Is there any chance that you'll go public so that people watching watching today could become retail investors?
Yes, a good question. We are in the middle of finalizing our Series C. We like to complete that. We're almost there. And then after that, we do have IPO plans as well. I don't want to say exactly when, but that's in the cards for us. We like to go IPO the sort of the old-fashioned way, the normal IPO. There's a lot of SPAC out there. I've never been a big fan of SPAC, but there are some good ones. So we'll keep an open mind if something comes along that fits our model, our business, and we want to have revenue when we do this, right? So, this is a big revenue year for us.
Yeah, so that sounds like, if I was a car manufacturer, battery manufacturer, I would probably want to look into your technology. Are you working with any partners right now, or do you have any deals right now where you're starting to put your manufacturing machines into their factories?
Many. We're talking to many major names out there. The ones that is published, I can at least mention. For example, we have a relationship with SK On, which is one of the fifth largest cell maker right out of Korea. We have investment from them as well. But we are talking to just about everybody out there in Europe, in Japan, Korea, and US. So yes, definitely this is the year of our commercialization of our machine. We are taking commercial orders. They need to come in and place order because it's going to be lead time is an issue. Supply chain, as you know, we're still constrained due to some of the major sources of supply still coming from in a few locations in the world. So we encourage everybody to come in and place their order because the queue time would be anywhere from 9 to 12 months. Just because of the material lead time.
And you've got a factory in Silicon Valley, right?
So we are headquartered in San Jose, California, in Silicon Valley. And remember, our business model is when we want to build those machines. It's just like fabless semiconductor model. It's asset light, meaning that we're going to have a contract manufacturing partner build the machines for us at high volume. Imagine those big contract manufacturing names, the likes of Flex and Jabil and those kinds of guys. So that's how we're going to build a machines at mass volume. We're not going to do it ourselves. So we build a few, like 10, 20, 30 here. As we get to the mass production, you need 4 machines for every gigawatt capacity you want to build. This is going to be quite a task here to try to build a huge factory on our own. Although, look, we could do that in the future. Today, the model is to work with our partners to build those machines.
It sounds like if I was an auto manufacturer, this is a really cool new option because before I would have to decide if I'm going to put all this capital and expertise into making a battery, or if I was just going to go to a, CATL or someone like that to make it for me. Now it sounds like with your machines, I could just kind of build a small part of the factory that would make the batteries for me. I could basically become vertically integrated. Do you think this is going to affect the car manufacturing world in that way?
Absolutely. We believe that. So look, our sort of mission here is change and bring a new paradigm in manufacturing of battery and manufacturing of anything, starting with battery right now. Part of what we talk about, we want to bring manufacturing home. I've seen some of your other interviews and people now, is investing a lot more in the minerals and natural, the products, the material that we need so that they don't have to come from China. With that much investment being made here now in the US, our manufacturing equipment is going to allow us to basically take a case of, GM, Ford, somebody would say, look, you know what? We can start building our own factory if they want to, or their partner can come in and they don't have to invest gazillion dollar up front. They can start with 1 gig, then scale it from there. And yes, you can build everything here and source your material here too, because like I said, there's a lot of investment made in lithium extractions and other minerals that are needed for producing batteries here. So we're just making it possible for everyone to do it here at home and not have to rely on outside sources.
So whenever you talk about a printer, the next question is the ink. I'm just wondering what the feedstocks kind of look like for your machines, and are they going to have to kind of go through you, or can you just take your normal battery minerals in normal powdered form and just kind of plug them in?
Yeah, the beauty is there's nothing exotic here. We don't do anything exotic other than we make it printable. So yes, the same material off the shelf. If you want to build LFP batteries or NMC batteries, it's the same material that we use. The big difference is in the mixing part in the beginning. We mix in dry powder, but also part of the pre-processing is to make it printable. So we make the powder literally look like liquid. I shouldn't be saying too much about that because it's going to teach others, give others ideas. But the idea is, the answer is it's the same material. Right? We don't have to, come up with anything different, special, or expensive. And the sources is going to be obviously some of the traditional sources that, traditional when hopefully we're doing it most here in US. But it's the same type of material. We have a model where we can, in some cases, we would help them and work with our partners, the material supply partners, that they will basically drop ship it. to them, but to the factory when they build the factories of future with our technology.
I mean, this is also exciting because I was just thinking we're getting into this new world of making robots as well. So like if you're a robot company and you don't want to really have to build your own battery plant, here you could just buy 1 or 2 or 5 machines or whatever you need to make the batteries for your robots.
Well said. I couldn't say it better, really, because in today's battery manufacturing, to be cost effective, you have to build big factories to begin with. I mean, let's say the mega factories of the people overseas, they give them the cost advantage, right? Volume gives you cost, not just cheap labor, but this allows now everybody at any size, any volume to build a battery that is going to be affordable for their application. In the case of robots, for example, yes, you have one machine. Like I said, it could produce equivalent of 5,000 cars. So you can do a lot with one machine for smaller companies.
This is really exciting. I'd never really thought about the fact that you could get a battery to the point where you could almost make it yourself, so to speak. Like it just always seemed like it was in the world of these giant battery manufacturers who had decades of experience doing it. And it was this complicated, magical process that like it even took Tesla years to perfect, right? And now it sounds like it's going to be kind of an off-the-shelf solution where you just, just like a 3D metal printer or, that you just buy the machine to make the parts you need.
Yeah, no, it's still for the businesses, for the companies.
Sure,
it's not for the individual, right?
Yeah, of course.
But you're absolutely right. It is definitely a lot easier now to build your factories of, the product today being the battery. By the way, after to solve your battery problem, you mentioned the robots or cars. I mean, there's so many parts in a car that gets printed. You can even use that, another version of the machine, to print your other products later. Right now, we're focusing on battery.
That's really cool.
The key point I want to make sure that we leave everybody with is we don't like to say we're a battery company. We are not a 3D printing company. We are a platform company. And a platform that, the implication of that is we can build any type of products. Right now, we're focusing on batteries. So that's one key message. But the other key message is really, there's a lot of talk about, geopolitical situations out there. Certainly the material sourcing and so to talk about national security. It's almost like, especially in the clean energy space, right? Or energy in general now, the clean version of it, it is a major issue. And I think one of the major enablers of bringing independence to U.S. and not have to be relying on other sources is our technology. We can do it all here. We can out-innovate, and we have out-innovated. What we have, I don't think that, there are not too many people out there that have. One thing that Elon Musk prides himself in, he says his advantage is his advanced manufacturing. He says he's a manufacturing company, right? He builds the machine that builds the machines. Well, we're doing similar. We're building the machine that builds the little machines, the batteries. And so with that, just imagine how much, we can bring the manufacturing back home, because for 40, 50 years, we worked outward. We took everything, sent everything out. This is going to actually try to help bring things back very quickly.
Robert, it's so great to talk to you today. I had a completely different idea of what your company was doing before I talked to you. So thank you so much for explaining that, because you're right. I thought of just, you're a battery company, because that's how we've been thinking about all these. But it's really interesting to hear that you're approaching it from a different direction.
Yes. No, again, we're coming from the equipment side of this. Think of us like Applied Material or ASML of the battery, right? And we want to sell to everybody.
That's great. Well, I can't wait to check back in with you to see, when you're working with some of your next companies that you can tell us about. So maybe we'll check back in with you in a while. And if you want to send us a battery that we can shoot or something, that would be great too.
We'll be happy to do that as well. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks for having me. Take care.